Yay, we made it. I am so sorry. I am so sorry. This is my fault. I am flying solo today. No help, no love, just me and you. That's it. It's just me and you. And I made a pot of coffee for actually my second pot of coffee this morning, and I forgot to put grounds in the coffee maker. I cleaned out the basket, never put another filter and coffee in it, ran it, made a pot of hot coffee. So, and I cannot do the show without coffee. I can't. I wouldn't be able to think my way through it. So, here's to you. I hope your coffee's as good as mine. Oh, let's do this. Let's get at it. No more delay. Coolant, I get that. I do. I get that. A lot of people are like that. It's a hot beverage. It's summertime. What the hell are you doing? My father was German and Norwegian, and my mother was Irish. And I don't know if it's a cultural thing or what, but they drank coffee the live long day. I mean, that was their beverage all day long. They drank coffee. My dad would be outside working in his shop, sweat dripping off his face, sipping a hot cup of coffee that was just steaming. It's the way I was raised. I was born to be addicted to this stuff. I don't do drugs. I'm not a big drinker. Basically, Coke Zero and coffee are my two addictions. But anyway, so this step down Joe thing just will not go away. And it's about time we have a discussion. Let's talk about all the quiet parts out loud. Why it will not go away. And to understand that, well, let's, like I said, just say the quiet parts out loud. Why will it not go away? Her. That's why. Not saying like she's a problem or she's a bad thing or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying. Don't read more into my words than what I say. We're going to have a long discussion about that. But it's her. And yes, it's racism. But not all of it. Not all of it. The other part of it is, yes, money. And she scares the living crap out of old white billionaires. To really understand, you've got to you got to know. I've told you before, the Democratic Party and the Republican parties are very different when it comes to fundraising. The Republicans have often talked about, George Soros. George Soros, actually gives more money to conservatives than he does liberals. He does. He gives more money to conservatives than liberals. It's been a fiction on the right forever. They've tried to sell this, we're the elites. Well, it's actually just like everything else that has to do with Republicans. That's projection. The Republicans have long been dominated by a handful of billionaires. So what did they do when they ran for office? They pulled the old Joseph Goebbels thing, and they accuse us of being owned by a billionaire. And they hold up for their bigoted core a Jewish billionaire, and they say, well, he's the one funding us all. And it's just not true. George Soros has never funded us to the point where he's actually been really useful. He just hasn't. But, that narrative exists. We've talked about it before. Democrats get into office, and why you're not going to see Republicans switch parties when all the chaos that was going on in the Republican parties, with the Speaker of the House and whatnot, people kept saying, we only need 4 or 5 of these Republicans to switch parties. And, you longtime viewers know I did a show on this. And I explained why they're not going to switch parties. It's really good to be a Republican. They literally fly you around. They feed you Wagyu beef and the finest wines. You're sipping Barolo. You were a schmuck before you got to Congress, but now they're treating you, they're flying you private, even though you're flying in their oldest, dirtiest jet, they're not going to let you in their new stuff. I mean, the billionaire class isn't going to let you into the club. I mean, no, but they'll let you into a little local gentleman's club, a little old guys only club. You can go there and you can have a nice meal with them. And to these mopes in Congress, seems great. They own them for life. That really is part of it. And the Republicans, they don't have to do what Democrats do. Democrats have to sit there and cold call. They've got to call big donors in their district and beg for money. They do. They have to rely on guys like me reminding you, the average everyday person, that you've got to send in $5, man. You got to send in $10. You've got to, act blue. You've got to get busy in your local races. That's what we Democrats rely on. Until recently, there has been a change in the Democratic Party. There has been a handful of mega donors that took a look at Trump and were horrified, just horrified. Sharon Ruddy, Indy Howe, replying to AOC's Repubs prepare lawsuits, disenfranchisement of primary voters, the Supreme Court would rule the Dem ticket illegal. Yeah, we're going to talk about all of that today, Sharon. Thank you for the comment. Thank you for the support. Oh, man, forgive me for slurping in the thing, but I needed this, man. You should have seen me when I got into the kitchen. I poured myself a thermos so I don't have to take an intermission to get more coffee. You should have seen me when I walked into the kitchen and there was nothing but hot water in that pot. My drug. But yeah, we've had a few really wealthy people step in, and this is one of them. This is Tom Strickler. And what he did was, well, let me just tell you a little bit about him. Strickler here used to own a talent agency out in California. And it was bought. Let me see if I got a picture of him up here. I thought I pulled a picture up of him. I may not. I thought I did. I don't. Anyways, if you watched a prior show of mine about Ari Emanuel, Rahm Emanuel's brother, Strickler's talent agency was bought by Rahm Emanuel. Guy's a billionaire, super rich, one of the biggest talent agencies in the world. Ari Emanuel's had one of the other biggest ones, bought him out to make a mega massive talent agency. Now, I want to shoot down a conspiracy theory that's floating around on the left, that these people are coming out and telling Joe Biden to step down because this guy's their agent. This guy is nobody's agent. He was bought out. He is no longer in the talent business. He is nobody's agent. He's not forcing anybody to say anything. He's just not, except Democratic politicians. Because see, what Tom Strickler did was he came out and he said, look, okay, Trump is horrible. He is freaking horrible. He is a never Trumper. He sees what a fascist dirtbag Trump is. And he said, I'm going to support vulnerable Democratic candidates. And he started funding Democrats. Well, the debates happened. And when the debates happen, we're going to have a really hard discussion here. When the debates happen, people realized Joe Biden is old. No way around it. You can't sugarcoat it. Yeah, I love how informed you people are. I love how informed you people are. So what happened? Because you notice this wasn't a conversation they had before the primaries. Everybody was riding with Biden, man. What caused the flip? The debates. But it's not just that Joe's old. They saw that Joe's old. It was the realization, the part that you and I don't say out loud, that being president is one of the toughest jobs there is. Serving 4 years as president will age you 10 to 20 years. You've seen it happen over and over and over again. Yvonne Garnett, don't be nervous. Don't be nervous. We're going to vote through this. We're going to vote through this. And I'm going to say the part out loud that you don't say out loud, but I'm going to say it for you. We know Joe Biden may not complete his next term. In fact, if I could pull you in a room privately, you would probably say he's probably not going to make it all 4 years. But I'm okay with that because I like Kamala Harris. Right? Yeah, I mean, this is a conversation. This is live chat for a reason. No, we don't know that. We don't know it for a fact. But if you're a gambling person or somebody that's betting your fortune, yeah, you're going to look at Joe Biden and you're going to say he's probably not going to finish his next term. We want him. He's doing great. Joe Biden has pledged to give the last of his life to us. He has been an amazing president. An amazing president. Thanks, Proverbs. I appreciate the support. Benaloco in the house. Check out her show sometime. Link your show, Benaloco. It's a cool show. Coolest hippie chick I know. She really is. Look, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden aren't the same people. They aren't. Joe Biden, if you are a billionaire, the reason you're comfortable being a never Trumper and supporting Joe Biden is because Joe Biden is not of the left. Joe Biden is the very center of the map. And that's just true. I'm riding with Biden. I like the guy. But let's be honest. Put Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden on a political spectrum, they don't fall in the same place. Joe Biden is center. And that's what made him okay for these billionaires. Because they knew, Democratic administrations, they do well. They do well. And Joe Biden was okay. Okay, the debates happen. All of a sudden, you're living in the reality that in the next administration, you're not going to get 4 years of Joe Biden. His vice president is going to become president. What do? Well, you got to take a hard look at that vice president. And yeah, part of it is sheer racism. And part of it is Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are not of the same place on the political spectrum. Kamala Harris is to the left of Joe Biden. She is. They have very different histories. Joe Biden has been, he just bragged about it the other day. He's the senator from Delaware. He's the corporation senator. There are more corporations in Delaware than the rest of the country combined. So yeah, if you're a never Trumper, what do you do? What do you do? Well, let's talk about Kamala Harris for a minute. Leanne, Joe is playing the long game. He knows Kamala won't get elected on her own. He can win, and then Kamala can take over. I don't believe that to be true. I believe we're growing and changing as a country, and Kamala Harris is incredibly intelligent. She understands things, she learns. She is a very smart woman. She's awesome. I do believe that in a future campaign, she could become president. And the polling indicates that I'm right about that. But, let's talk about it. Let me introduce you to Kamala Harris. This is Kamala Harris and her husband, Doug Emhoff. Kamala Harris and her husband, Doug Emhoff. Are you seeing a path here, a pattern here? Are you starting to see a pattern here? Kamala Harris and her husband, Doug Emhoff. Let me tell you something. I have met Doug Emhoff. I've spent time with Doug Emhoff before. I have had one of those hugs. Doug is a hugger, man. He is one of those guys that walks into a room and just lights the room up. He really is. He is a wonderful guy. You cannot talk to him without a smile coming up on your face. You just can't. And he's, again, brilliant, incredibly intelligent individual. And yeah, I have had one of those hugs. He is a hugger. He really is. I'm a hugger too, so it worked out okay. But yeah, Doug Emhoff is a great guy. He really is. That's Kamala Harris's spouse. This is her father. This is Donald Harris. This is Donald Harris. Donald Harris was a professor emeritus at Stanford. He did advanced work with Keynesian economics, which is, this is her father. Brilliant man. If you don't know what a professor emeritus is, that is a retired professor that did such significant work that your university honors you with the title emeritus. And for those that don't know, Keynesian economics is what right-wingers hate. They hate Keynesian economics. Keynesian economics, it comes from John Maynard Keynes. What it says is that the free market isn't enough. The free market will cause crashes. It will wreck itself. It's not the best thing for everybody involved. Go watch the movie A Beautiful Mind. His work was, and he's written some absolutely groundbreaking articles, that papers that actually explain why, yes, the government has a role to play in keeping the economy stable. And that just makes right-wingers go frickin' nuts. Taxation and spending by the government absolutely has an influence on our overall economy. Her father literally laid the foundation for much of that research. That is one reason she terrifies capitalist billionaires. Her mother was smarter than her father. I mean, just, you're not, this family, I mean, it is incredible. Just incredible. This is Shyamala, and I'm going to kill her last name. It's Gopalan. Shyamala Gopalan, PhD. Her research on progesterone receptors literally laid the foundation for what we know about breast cancer today. She was absolutely a phenomenally brilliant woman. And her research literally changed what we know about breast cancer today. These were incredibly gifted people, incredibly intelligent people. Those are her parents. A Stanford professor and an advanced biologist and researcher. She comes from California. Her first job was in Alameda County as a prosecutor. And she was recruited to San Francisco, where she worked as a prosecutor, and she worked in was recruited into the city attorney's office. Then she ran for DA and became ran for attorney general, became the attorney general of California twice. And she ran for Senate. She won there too. And she was senator until she became vice president. That is incredibly different than Joe Biden. Joe Biden has been, his own words, a corporate senator. He very much knows how to make deals with those massive billionaires to get things done, but those deals will not be left. They will be center. So if you're a billionaire, even a billionaire that's now donating to the Democratic Party, and you watch that debate, it became very real to you all of a sudden that your very corporate-friendly president will likely not complete his next term. So what do you do? Well, you can't support Trump. I mean, you can't. You can't support Trump. So what have they been doing? It's like Tom Strickler. He's threatening every Democrat that he's ever given a dime to that they will never see another dime from him if they don't call for Joe Biden to step down. Thank you for the support, David. I appreciate you. I appreciate you. That's really happening right now. That's not everything that's happening, but that is really happening right now. But it's not the only thing that's happening. You have bigotry happening. You have bigotry happening. And by the way, this is Ari Emanuel, Rahm Emanuel's brother. Y'all didn't even see me pull that up, did you? That's Ari Emanuel. You may remember the show we did where we talked about Ari Emanuel and some of the changes that are happening in the Democratic Party. He is now he owns PBR. He owns the Pro Bull Riding Association. He owns just a bunch of this stuff that you would consider right wing is actually now owned by the brother of Rahm Emanuel. These guys are not riding with Trump, but they are terrified that we will get a left candidate. Because let me tell you, They are terrified of taxes. They really are. They are terrified of taxes. It really comes down to being that base. Barbara Lanky says, so billions of dollars is not enough for them. It's always more, more, more. Billionaires do not understand the concept of the word enough when it comes to them and their money. They do not understand that. There will never be enough. And they are terrified of what will happen, because Joe Biden was not going to hit them with a 25% tax bracket, tax rate. He was not going to do that. We were never going to see that. We were going to see taxes go up on billionaires, but it was never going to be to their fair share. That was not going to happen under Joe Biden. Jake Sellers says, I'm riding with Joe. What ticks me off is that they can talk about, all they can talk about is Joe's age, but you never hear them talk about how crazy and unfit Trump is. Trump may not make it another 4 years either if he's elected. No, he's not. And many of these guys are never Trumpers. They're not riding with the fascism. They're not. I'm telling you. But some are. And some of this is pure racism. Pure 100% racism. Y'all all know Harlan Crow. Bought himself a Supreme Court justice. Again, just let Clarence Thomas ride on a tired old yacht and owned him for life. Well, it's come out that old Harlan Crow has a specific affinity for Nazi memorabilia. And I don't mean like he's donating to a museum for, that museum to study a particularly heinous part of our history. Thanks, newest Bill. Reality is sometimes difficult. And I know this isn't a feel-good show, and I'm saying things out loud that we don't normally like to say out loud, and it doesn't feel good, but please stick with me. Stick with me, because I will always tell you the truth. I will always tell you the truth. Harlan Crow has an autographed version of Mein Kampf. Yeah. In his home. Not in a museum. In his home. An autographed version of Mein Kampf. Much has been made of the fact he also has napkins from the original Third Reich napkins. Not like he had these made to duplicate it. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying these are originals. He buys stuff like this and fills his home with it. And he also buys statues, like whenever you see one of these statues get torn down, he'll try to buy it. He will. He'll try to buy it. He's got statues of Stalin. He's got statues of, Pope, all kinds of dictators. That's just who the guy is. Now, look, I don't know Harlan Crow. I don't. You don't know him. And, the corporate-owned media went to great lengths to tell us, hey, just because he goes out and he buys a lot of Nazi stuff and keeps it in his house doesn't mean he's a Nazi. I mean, let me tell you, the corporate New York Times, all these people ran stories to say this very thing that I'm about to tell you. Sure, I don't know Harlan Crow. I don't know that the man's a Nazi. I don't. I do know that this isn't in a museum. This is in his personal home. But since I don't know the man, I've got to go with what I know. And you give me a 70-year-old man who's got a bunch of Nazi stuff in his house, and you tell me, you put a gun to my head, And you tell me, is he a Nazi? Is he big? Is he not? Your life depends on it. If you get the wrong answer, I'm going to blow your brains out. I'm going to run with, yeah, if you listen to his private conversations and his private communications, I'll bet you he's a bigot. That's the gamble I'm going to make. Do I know the man? No. Can I tell you he is? No, I don't know the man. But if you had to ask me what makes sense, yeah. And it's not just that I know old bigoted white men. It's not just that. It's because he bought himself a Supreme Court justice and some other politicians and guys like him, Tim Dunn, Ferris Wilkes, all those guys went out and bought themselves some politicians. E.T., my man, says the truth hurts, and many on the left don't want to deal with things that hurt. They want to feel good, tough, time to get behind Joe and Kamala. That's where we're going, guys. That's where we're going. Lucky Star says Clarence Thomas is the cheapest date Harlan Crow ever paid for. He spent $4 million on gifts for Thomas and in return made billions off Thomas. Yeah. And other politicians. And these old white Republicans, donors in the billionaire frat boy club that funds the Republican Party. Yeah, I'm rolling on their bigots. I am. Do I know them? No. But the reason isn't just their demographic. It's because you bought something, and what did you do with it? Okay, you bought the Republican Party. What did you do with it? Did you clean it up? Did you make it serve the American people? Did you do anything that's like non-bigoted? No. They embrace these people 100%. Y'all remember Charlottesville. Y'all know who these people are. You've seen the Proud Boys. You've seen all of these groups 100% behind the Republican Party. And you're screaming in this picture, the Jews will not replace us. This is the party you bought, and you didn't change this. By the way, the guy in the black there, he's dead. He changed his name legally to Teddy von Newcomb. Yeah, he was a white supremacist, and white supremacists like to import drugs. They do. And he got busted muling drugs over the Mexican border. And Mr. Tough Guy here couldn't handle prison, so he offed himself before he went to jail. Real name's Teddy Landrum. Mr. Tough Guy couldn't handle a hitch in prison. So yeah, that's who these people are. And you put, I was watching I like guns. That's a gun cabinet behind. I like guns. I do. But it's not my identity. It's not, you don't see me, I don't do gun YouTube. I don't do anything. None of that. I don't think people should be walking around. I don't walk around armed. People shouldn't walk around armed. It's stupid. Guns are dangerous. Accidents happen. Professionals make mistakes with guns. You, as an amateur, should not be walking around Walmart with a gun hidden in your waistband. You shouldn't. But because I do like guns, I get a lot of stuff that comes across my feed that has to do with guns. And unfortunately, that a lot of the time has stupid, ignorant politics tied to it from the right wing. Exactly. One does not fill one's house with the trappings of an ideology one does not admire. Perfectly said, which is why I'm so glad you people are here. Perfectly said. Thank you. And these bigots, they let me give you an idea how stupid they are. Okay. I get this YouTube video that comes across. He's one of the right wing 2A bros. And he's just railing about how it's our fault Trump got shot. It's our rhetoric. He said, because we call him a fascist, that's why he got shot. Okay, he can figure out that the shooter, who is a Republican, shot Trump because Trump's a freaking fascist. But in his mind, it's not that Trump is actually a fascist. It's just we call him one. Dude, we've read the 2025 Project. Dude, we know it was written by people in Trump's prior administration that will be serving in his new administration. Trump, I told you, it's the time of it's that phase in the election where the right wingers try to like shove the shit back in the horse, and Trump's lying, saying he was actually bad mouthing the 2025 Project, saying, "Oh, parts of it are just extreme, radical, bad as the radical left." You know, bullshit. His people wrote it. The same people that put kids in cages. His people wrote it. And his people will serve with him again. And this mope comes across my YouTube feed and he says, it's not that we look at what he says. It's not that we looked at them banning healthcare for women and overturning Roe. It's not that we hear them say out of their own mouths that democracy's got to go. Yeah, we need to just have some fascism for a while. Nothing that they say or they do. It's that we saw them and we said, hey, they want to be fascists. In his mind, in his broken mind, it's not that they're saying it and doing it and that they're actually have put out job applications to hire people that believe in the 2025 Project. It's not that we're calling out all of that and their actions. It's that we said it. It's not that they're doing it. It's that we said it. That is perfect, 100% narcissistic, abusive gaslighting. Every abuser in every relationship, don't raise your voice at me. They punish you for saying that. It's not that they raise their voice at you or that you just ask them to not do something. It's that you're the asshole because they're narcissists. Ask any woman or spouse that's been in an abusive relationship. Anyone that says, hey, don't do that, ends up being the bad guy. And I sat there and I watched this guy, and that's all I could think of. You know, he's sitting there wearing a T-shirt with a Punisher emblem on it. Y'all don't know. This is the stuff that's freaking hilarious. This is how stupid these freaking bigots are. This is the Punisher emblem. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you've seen it on cars. This is the Punisher emblem. The skull. It's usually just a gray or a white skull. It comes from a comic book. It comes from a comic book. But they never read the comic book. They didn't. The Punisher character is a guy by the name of Frank Castle. And the whole point of Punisher, and forgive me for talking about a comic book on the show, but it's really goofy shit and they're really stupid. And you're going to find out just how stupid in just a minute. Yes, exactly. These same people, these bigots, these Trumpers don't realize that this cartoon character, that they're putting his emblem on their trucks and their vehicles, hates them the most. See, the whole point behind that they love about the Punisher is his whole, and the thing that they've embraced is the whole point of the Punisher cartoons is corruption has gotten so bad that the police are bad, and the people have no other choice but to take up arms on their own. That the criminals and the cops and the government are all working together, and then therefore it's okay to be violent to defend yourself because your back is against the wall and nobody's coming to save you. But it's corrupt cops. It's criminals. It's bigots. It's the very people that these people are that Frank Castle pew-pews. And they're too stupid to know this. So they run around putting his emblem on their truck, not knowing that they're the target. They're the people he hates. Brittany Renee Blatchley says, thank you for the support, Texas Paul. Our family fled Texas a year ago over the anti-trans crap. Yeah, that's who they are, man. That's who they are. They don't do anything. They don't work on anything. They don't do the sausage making of government. They just shiny objects to attack people over things that make nobody's difference in anybody's life, except for the smallest mind, honestly, to be honest, I support the LGBTQ plus community because I think we all do better when we all do better. But really, how significant is any discussion they're having about the transgender community? Because it's one of the smallest communities in our country. Even the Fantasyland stuff they make up in their heads really does not apply to anybody, except for a very, very, very small group of people. But then on the other hand, they're letting their billionaires rape our schools. They're putting indoctrination programs in our schools. Meanwhile, you've got the dumbest of the dumb that put Punisher emblems on their trucks, running around parroting stupid shit. And we're going to get to more of that. Appreciate the support. I really do. Thank you. But it's even better because, I mean, this whole Punisher thing, I just wanted to take a second to just laugh at these people. See that flag? That's a 3%er flag. The 3%er flag. Just another stupid, idiotic, right-wing thing that just these bigots that are just so damn dumb that make up these people that these billionaires influence. These are the bigots that they influence. Keep those dots connected. These billionaire donors that want to say, well, you can't call me a Nazi just because I own Nazi memorabilia. What do? You bought yourself a Republican Party. What have you been doing with it? These are the people. The 3%ers, they take that whole 3% thing, where that comes from, this is why I laugh at them so freaking hard. I laugh at them so hard. The whole name itself is wrong. See, they get the name from the Revolutionary War. Way back then. Yeah, no kidding, right? 3% brain function. That's a good one, man. That's a good one. The reason they call themselves 3%ers is they believe that only 3% of Americans participated in fighting the British when our country was founded. Only 3%. That's just not true. That's just not true. It's provably false. You named your whole organization over something that is just false. They got it by looking at land applications and pension applications after it ended. No. The Continental Army wasn't just 80,000 people, which would have been 3% of the population. No, you idiot. Every state had militias. Every state had their own armies. Every state, there were roughly 15% of the population fielded to fight the British for our independence. And if you know anything about warfare, for every soldier you put in the field, there's 5 to 10 people behind him doing the logistics that allows that soldier to be in place. There were about 15% of the population were fighting. That's how stupid these people are. And they've displayed this proud 3%. And where they got it, they stole it. They wanted to seem tough. This is where they got 3% from, other than the idiocy that they made up about the delusional only 3% of the people fought in the revolution. This is how stupid they are. It just sounded tough because motorcycle clubs forever have called themselves 1%ers. And where that comes from is the American Motorcycle Association back in the early 60s put out a statement when the government was talking about just attacking motorcycle riders. The American Motorcycle Association said, look, 99% of people that ride motorcycles are good, law-abiding people, period. So motorcycle clubs adapted the patch that said 1%er because they're the 1% that weren't the law-abiding. Get it? That's where the 3%ers got this. They're idiots. They're morons. These billionaires bought a political party with these people, these morons at their core. This is their voter. So yes, bigotry is a huge, huge part of this. These billionaires that are Trump supporters and some of the bigoted billionaires that are dumping money into the Democratic Party, and yes, they exist, took one look at this and went, oh, hell no. Yeah, that's real. That bigotry is real. But it's also for the ones that are just looking at the dollars, they're terrified. They are terrified. And what they've been doing is, y'all know Steve Schmidt. Republican turned never Trumper, right? Burned his bridges in the Republican Party. Well, Steve Schmidt is trying to buy his way back into the Republican donor class because it is about 1,000 times bigger than the Democratic donor class, and he likes his Wagyu beef. You remember the guy that brought us Sarah Palin? Yeah, this guy. He became a never Trumper. And he burned bridges within the Republican donor class. So what has he been doing as of late to make his way back in? Well, he went to work as an advisor for the Dean Phillips campaign. Y'all probably don't even remember who Dean Phillips is. Dean Phillips was the guy that ran against Joe Biden and got like 3 delegates. I don't remember what it is. Some ridiculously. He stayed in the race. And they have been pushing the message from the get-go to, quote, pass the torch. Gray Fox says, I bring love from Scotland. I love our European audience. Thank you for being here. Talk to people when we, man, we've got to be a big, diverse crowd having these conversations so that we really know what people are thinking instead of the damn corporate media telling us what people are thinking. So we had 14 years of clowns ruining our country and making me, a trans woman, a target. I do hope for all of you that you check your documents and if ID is needed and to vote. Thank you for that message. It is incredibly important that you check your documentation. And yeah, that's one of the major differences between us and them. Both sidedism is bullshit. We believe everybody does better when everybody does better. Quit trying to, these freaks on the right that are constantly trying to sow discord and hate. Got to pause for a second. I'm out of coffee. Got to pour myself a little more coffee here. Can't do the show without coffee, folks. I just can't. Whew. Oh, needed that. Needed that. Oh, yeah, baby. Life is good. But Steve Schmidt, talking about Steve Schmidt and what he's doing to try to earn his way back into the billionaire class, because Steve Schmidt's got this big, beautiful, fancy house he's got to pay for. He went to work for Dean Phillips, and he has been pounding that pass the torch message the entire election, even before the debates and all of that. And he's in what looks like some pretty hot water. See, PACs can't coordinate with campaigns. That's really the only law that's left. I mean, the Republican Supreme Court has just made bribery legal. You can pretty much well do anything in a campaign anymore with these guys. This is the one taboo that's left. The PACs are not supposed to coordinate with campaigns. And Steve Schmidt's pass the torch message went straight from the Dean Phillips campaign right into a super PAC that is running commercials right now. They're getting young African-American men to put in these commercials to say, pass the torch. This is where another aspect of it is coming from. These are Republican billionaire donors paying for this crap. It's just the way it is, folks. I mean, this is what's really happening. And that's not the end of it. That's not the end of it. You got Peter Thiel. He is Elon Musk's best buddy. And you've heard Elon Musk is going to come out. He's going to drop $45 million a month on Donald Trump. And this is his best friend, Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel bought a gambling company, political gambling company called Polymarket. This is Peter Thiel. And man, it's taken off. They've got, at the last reporting, which is not current, over $250 million in gambling on who's going to win the next election. And Peter Thiel, yeah, he originally made his money founding PayPal. Peter Thiel, I want you to imagine this, okay? I want you to think about this for a second. You're at a horse racing track and you gamble and you make all the smartest bets. You've got a horse that is just dominating. You're talking about this is going to be a Triple Crown winner. And you bet on that horse. And then he doesn't win, place, or show. Then you find out that the guy that owns the track owns one of the horses. He's financially interested in who wins. And he's spending money on one of the horses. I don't have to explain to you how unethical that is. Amy Manuel's host of Politics Musings. Link that in the chat. My dim national delegate friend is mad as hell. I'm with you. I'm with you. We're going to get there. We're going to get there. Now, I want you to let that seep into your brain for a second. Peter Thiel, that owns Polymarket, a political betting site, is putting his thumb on the scale of the election. And it gets worse than that. I mean, I want you to imagine the lawsuits that are going to come out of just that. I mean, think about it. If you bet your mortgage and find out that Peter Thiel has been putting his thumb on the scale at Polymarket, you've got a hell of a lawsuit on your hands. But it gets worse than that. You know, this freak, Nate Silver, you know, the polling has been god awful wrong. And this guy is dead center in the polling world. Keeps telling us how terrible Joe Biden's doing. And then the campaigns pay for polls, and they're like, no, he's not. He's gained 5 points. He's gained 3 points. But then this guy will put out, oh, no, Joe Biden, Donald Trump, man, after that boring ass convention that nobody watched, ratings were down. Their biggest star was an 80s wrestler. That shit show of a convention. This guy comes out and says, oh, man, Donald Trump is taking off. He worked for Peter Thiel at Polymarket. He's literally financially vested in this gambling scheme. I'm being quiet so you can let that sink in. Mr. Polling guy that keeps putting out the shit polls works for Peter Thiel at a gambling site where hundreds of millions of dollars are on the line, and they're supporting Trump. People. Yes, this is about her. This is about her. Because she is not Joe Biden. She is not center. She is left of center. Our own donors are terrified because, let's face it, you didn't want to say it out loud. I didn't want to say it out loud, but I've said it before. If Biden died today, we would weaken and Bernie's him. We'd weaken and Bernie's him through the election. Weaken at Brandon's, man. Weaken at Brandon's. Because we love his team. We love the people around him. And yeah, we made the deal in our minds. Joe Biden's old. He is. He's a great man. He's been one of our greatest presidents. And as long as he's willing to serve and he's going to give us the last of his life, yes, I want him as my president. I'm riding with Biden, baby. 100%. I love how informed you folks are. I love how informed you are. Yes, Peter Thiel and J.D. Vance are very close friends. J.D. Vance is a venture capitalist. A real estate developer and a venture capitalist are their ticket. And you've got trailer park, poor folks living paycheck to paycheck supporting that because they're bigots. And those people stroke their inner bigot. They tell them you can be your bigot out loud. You got a venture capitalist and J.D. Vance, who's best buddies with Peter Thiel, and they're in that group. Mr. Yale, yeah, great point there. I just exactly push back. Mr. Yale, and a real estate developer is their ticket. But they're freaking out because the billionaires are freaking out because they realize Joe Biden's old. And Joe Biden may not make it through the entire next term. And then we get Kamala Harris. And Kamala Harris is a former prosecutor that held people like, I don't know, people running a gambling site that are also putting their thumb on the scale of an election. That would be something a prosecutor might be interested in. So that's it, folks. That's really, really what it's all about. Yes, it's bigotry. Yes, it's because she's African American on her father's side. Her father was of Jamaican heritage. Her mother, she's the first Asian. She will be the first Asian president because her mother was Asian. Um, yes, bigotry is a huge portion of it, 100%. And yeah, Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan right now has a brand ambassador that I believe she's still got an active lawsuit against him. I have to double check the facts on that because she was black. He hired her to be a brand ambassador. They met. He took one look at her and the next day fired her for a little blonde girl. Yeah, that's their guy. That's their people. That's their people. And yes, we have California Democrats, Nancy Pelosi, Adam Schiff, Zoe Lofgren, were all funded by a Democratic billionaire that is telling them, you will tell Biden to step down or I will pull all your funding. That's part of it. That's part of it. And that billionaire is freaking out because he had corporate Joe and he was okay with that. But he ain't okay with Kamala. She's a prosecutor. She's not corporate Joe. She's not Delaware Joe. And he's freaking out because he's going to have to pay some taxes. So, yeah. You want to hear something beautiful, though? I mean, really freaking beautiful. Just beautiful. All of these people that are wasting their money, and they're wasting their money. 100%. Wasting their money. You know why Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff and Zoe Lofgren are comfortable in doing this and saying this? Because they know they can't lose. 2025 project is real. They're really doing that. And no matter what happens, I am riding with Biden, baby, 100%. And no matter what happens, if Joe Biden tomorrow says, you know what, I'm sick of this shit, I'm out, I don't care who's next on that ticket, I'm voting for him. I'm voting for him because I can't do fascism. And these Democrats know it. We're over a barrel. We are 100%. We're over a barrel. We've got democracy or fascism. And this is why every one of you, to say the quiet part out loud, none of you care that Joe is old. None of you. You've seen it with your eyes. You know Joe today ain't the Joe that was around 4 years ago. He's getting old. We know it. Well, we're going to vote for him anyways. And we don't want you to try to take him off the ballot because Joe has over $250 million in the bank. He's got infrastructure in place. He's got the support. He's got the delegates already. Thank you for the support, Peter. He's got the delegates already. And his policies have been fantastic. His team is fantastic. One of the best presidencies we've ever had. And we're good with that. We're good with that. We're not good with the chaos that you're trying to sow. We're not. We're not okay with that. We're riding with Biden, baby. We are 100%. And yes, we know there's a strong possibility that that may lead to a President Kamala Harris, and we're cool with that too. We like Kamala. We do. Because you know what? Donald Trump will likely not survive another election. He's got heart problems, guys. I don't care any way you slice it. I'm not his doctor, but I can tell you that almost 80-year-old obese man has type 2 diabetes. The reason his ear bled like he was a stuck hog is because he is on medication. He's on blood thinners. He is on blood thinners. He had the tiniest nick. Do it. Go into your bathroom, take a needle, nick your ear, and see how little blood comes out of that cartilage. He bled like a stuck hog because he's got heart problems. And he's on a lot of medication. And that's why you will never see his medical, just like his taxes, how he was always audited. You will never see his medical records because his heart is about to pop. And I will tell you something, given the choice between Kamala Harris and JD Vance, you bet your ass I am 100% Kamala Harris. 100%. Kamala Harris is 10 times the human being that JD Vance is. 10 times. I got one more thing for you that'll just, I want to leave you with something good. It'll break your heart. It will break your heart when you first hear it, but it is something good. I was raised in Texas, and people ask me, man, how can you believe the shit that you believe? Like, I'm anti-death penalty. Most people in Texas are very pro-death penalty. You know, Ron White makes a joke about it. This is why I'm anti-death penalty. This is why I'm anti-death penalty. After 43 years in prison, Sandra Hem was released from prison for being wrongly convicted for a murder. There was no evidence that she was at the murder scene. There were no witnesses that put her at the murder scene. She did not know the victim. There was no motive established. The only reason that she was convicted was when they arrested her, they stuck her in, we used to have insane asylums. State They put her in an insane asylum and they pumped her full of drugs to where she was drooling on herself. And then the cops went in and interrogated her. And they used that testimony of when she was blasted out of her mind on drugs to convict her with literally no other evidence. And she spent 43 years in a Missouri prison, wrongly convicted. Thank you for the support, Adam. I appreciate you. And she was finally exonerated. The Republican prosecutor literally had to be threatened by the judge because she kept interfering with her release after the judge ordered her released. Literally, the judge had to tell her, thank you, Jeanette. I really appreciate you. I really appreciate Denmark audience, Scotland audience. We've got folks here from Australia, folks here from Africa, folks here from the Middle East. I'm so glad to have you here. The prosecutor did not put out a public statement after her release because the prosecutor was threatened by the judge. If you interfere one more time, I will hold you in contempt and I will put you in jail. Why? Why was this Republican so avid about this? It was a cop. It was a cop. It looks like the person guilty of this crime was a cop. The next day, a St. Joseph's police officer was caught using the victim's credit card. And in research of witness testimonies, that officer's truck, his personal vehicle, was spotted near the scene. So yeah, it looks like it was a cop. This is why I don't support the death penalty. We took 43 years from her, and I hope she sues Missouri and lives out the remainder of her life. She is now in the 60s. She was a young woman in her early 20s when she was convicted of this. She's now in her mid 60s. I hope she sues the crap out of Missouri. I hope she lives the remainder of her life as a millionaire on a beach somewhere, sipping whatever fruity drinks she likes. But yeah, I will never support the death penalty because there's way too much of this shit. Thank you for the information, Silly Bibu. I appreciate you. Death Penalty Information Center lets you see all the exoneration post Furman versus Georgia. Yeah. Thank you for the information, Silly Bibu. Kathy K, thank you for support. You keep the lights on here and there, and I'm truly grateful for everything that y'all do. I know I grew up poor. That's a lot of money, man, and I really appreciate it. I really do. You allow me to do this full time, and I'm very grateful. But yeah, she's with her family now. She's living with her sister, and she's free. That's what I have for you today. Enjoy some Texas cities at night.